What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, MrMoonsin, and we have another League of Legends gameplay for you. I know, right? How unique. In this gameplay, I will be playing Ryze, everybody's favorite mage. He's definitely not everybody's favorite mage. Ryze is the unloved poster boy of League of Legends. Like, I'm pretty certain he's in every single cinematic clip that Riot have released. Pretty certain. Like, he's only got a 10 point, like an 11% play rate or something silly like that. It's not great. I mean, he used to be, in my opinion, he used to be a lot better before they nerfed the fuck out of his ultimate and removed the mana component of it. Because his ultimate used to give him a passive amount of mana, which substantially increased his damage. But they removed that and instead decided to give him movement speed, which, yeah, I guess I can understand why. I mean, Ryze is kind of slow. So in this game, like I said, I'm playing Ryze. Now, what most people don't understand about Ryze is you don't really build him like you build a normal AP carry. You know, my Ryze build is pretty much just stacking a fuckload of mana. And the reason you stack a boatload of mana is quite simple. Ryze's abilities scale off of mana. It's just something that a lot of people don't quite, I guess, either understand or they don't realize how much damage it actually contributes. So let's take a quick look at Ryze's ability. So first ability I've started off with in this game is Overload. And you'll see here I will chunk LeBlanc with it. That's at level 1. So at level 1, Overload will do 60 damage plus 40% of my AP plus 6.5%, I think it is, of my total mana. Which, considering I bought a mana item first, and I've got something stupid like, 800 plus mana to start with, it's safe to say it's a fair chunk. Let's just put it that way. It's a fair chunk of damage. Second ability I've taken is Rune Prism, and again, scaling damage off of mana. So the way it works is at level 1 it would do 60 magic damage plus 60% of your AP. So the damage ratio on AP has gone up, but it will do 4.5% of your max mana as damage. So you've got an increased AP ratio, but your mana ratio has gone down. Now the third ability I will take is going to be Spellflux. Spellflux, same kind of thing. It does 50 base damage, plus 35% of your AP, plus 1% of your max mana. So building mana on Ryze is, in my opinion, more effective than building straight AP. If I came into the game with a full set of AP runes, then I haven't done the maths, but I'm pretty certain I would be doing less damage than if I came in with, like I have, a full set of mana. I've got, I believe, I was running Mana Quints, Mana Blues, Mana Yellows, and Magic Pen Reds. As for masteries, I run mostly the support tree, as opposed to running like 21 offensive. Now there's a reason for this, and again that comes down to mana. So if we look at Ryze and we take into consideration the fact that he is a champion that gets damage scaling through mana for his bonus damages. If we look at the masteries and we think about this for a second, Now, there is a mastery in the support tree which gives you a percentage to increase mana. Now, that effectively translates to a percentage in increased damage. Expanded Mind in the utility tree will give you 5% increased maximum mana, which doesn't sound a lot, but trust me, it contributes quite heavily. So instead, with Ryze, I run 12-1-17. I run 1 point in double-edged sword because it's extra damage. I run 4 points in sorcery for the cooldowns. I run 3 points in mental force for the 16 AP at level 18. Because although yes, mana is what I consider to be his main focus in terms of damage, AP is still there and it shouldn't be neglected. Arcane Mastery for the +6 AP to start with, and of course Executioner because it's just too good not to have. I mean a 5% increase in damage to people under 50% HP, considering Ryze is a ability cycling burst mage. That's going to happen pretty quickly. In 1 defense, I have just got 1 point in recovery, which is 1 health per 5, which doesn't sound a lot, but there's a reason it's there, and I'll explain in a second. In utility tree, I have taken 3 points in fleet of foot because Ryze needs all the movement speed he can get. 3 points in meditation because mana regen rather is quite important, and 1 point in strength of spirit. So strength of spirit gives you 1 health per 5 for every 300 mana you have. I started the game once I bought an item with like just 850 mana, 860 mana or something like that. So that's an extra 2 health per 5 plus the 1 health per 5 in recovery in the defense tree. Gives you 3 health per 5 extra, which doesn't sound a lot, but again, it's sustainability, it's there. I have taken 1 point in Alchemist, 3 points in Vampirism, 3 points in Greed, because gold per 5 is pretty useful, and then 3 points in Expanded Mind for the increased damage, and total increased mana. So yeah, you know, starting with a full set of mana, yellows, blues, and quints gives you like an extra 270, 275 mana. At this point in the game, I am going to point out this is a commentary that has been recorded after the gameplay has happened. I've not really been watching the gameplay because I was checking something online quickly. But at this point, I can see I have a kill. We like kills. I will be perfectly honest, I was scared of being matched up with LeBlanc, because the one thing LeBlanc really has, which Ryze has none of, is mobility. You know, LeBlanc will use her annoying little teleport attack to be all in your face, and then she'll run away again, and you never get the kill like that. And she's got a silence. So against mages, she can cause, especially you know, mages that aren't very mobile, she causes a lot of problems. However, luckily, because my start game strategy was basically to just harass the hell out of her and keep her on the back. That's a phone call. I will just mute this for now because I'm doing a commentary. It's my girlfriend. I should probably take this call. She can wait. It's fine. It's fine. No problems. No problems. What was I saying? Yeah, so my start game strategy was basically to harass LeBlanc massively. To try and make her realize that if she comes too close, she is going to get punished. Which is why Overload, you know, I always max Overload out first, because it gives you cooldown reductions and damage, which is, you know, it's all good. Yeah, but it's got slightly more range than his other stuff. Oh god. She probably could have killed me then. She probably could have killed me, but luckily Volibear and Italy showed up when they did. But yeah, basically, if you're against a champion like this, you need to just harass them, hit them hard, hit them early, and try and keep them feeling pressured. If they feel pressured, they're less inclined to do ballsy things and try and make plays. So because I managed to keep her on a defensive for the first 10 minutes, that's given me a pretty big advantage in the sense that I've been able to farm more or less unworried about what LeBlanc can do. I mean, yes, she's got quite high burst damage, but so do I. And if she comes, balling in at me, then if I get a Rune Prison on her, she's going to get punished because of it. So it's a matter of whose reflexes are better, me hitting her with a Rune Prison, or her being able to teleport away quickly. Which, I like to think my reflexes are pretty quick most of the time. So yeah, I'm playing with my boy Undead. This is like his third game, maybe with Kha'Zix, maybe fourth. I can't remember. We had a couple of games before this, but he had literally just bought the champion. So yeah, he is on Skype. It is a premium team, just the two of us. But he couldn't talk. He had guests or something. I don't know. Maybe he lost his voice. Who knows? Who knows? I wish he'd lose his voice. Bless him. Anyway, yeah. So the early game was really about just trying to keep the pressure on. Now Ryze wave clears very well, and he wave clears so well using his ulti. For those that don't know, Ryze is a champion. Desperate Power, his ultimate, grants him spell vamp, gives him 80 movement speed, but also makes all of his spells deal 50% of their damage as splash damage, which is pretty sick. Considering he's got such low cooldowns anyway, it allows him to wave clear like stupendously well. I didn't get the kill there. Just thought I got it. Oh well, playing safe. So whenever Ryze casts a spell, we're talking about Ryze a little bit now. Whenever Ryze casts a spell or ability, whatever you want to call it, all of his other spells have their cooldown reduced by 1 second, which is pretty cool. If we look at his abilities, Overload at max level gives you a 10% cooldown reduction anyway, and has a 3-second cooldown time, standard cooldown time, without taking into account cooldown reductions. Rune Prison will hold them for 1.75 seconds at max level, so almost 2 seconds, but has a 14-second cooldown. Spell Flux has a 14-second cooldown, but the damage bounces. I mean, ideally with Spell Flux, you kind of want to keep yourself between your opponent and you. Ideally, if you could single someone out, it's brilliant because it just bounces between the two of you, and does like boatloads of damage. It also, it's worth noting, Spell Flux will reduce their magic resistance. At max level, I think it's 24 or 25 less magic resistance they have, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, the reduction doesn't stack with multiple hits, so it's not completely overpowered, because otherwise if you just singled someone out and you landed like, what, 5 bounces, well I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 bounces on them, and you shred like 24 or 25 magic resist, whichever it is, per hit. That's pretty overpowered. That's like doing lots of true damage. But Riot likes to have true damage on their champions anyway, so I guess it wouldn't be that OP after all. Hint, hint, Riot, please make my champion better. So the trick with Ryze is really trying to get his rotations right. Which, when we say rotations, it's the time you don't really hear in MOBAs. Well, I guess you do with some champions rather, but it's more of the kind of thing you would hear in an MMO. The trick is trying to get his rotations right and using the right abilities at the right time. So taking into account that his combos, he's got a couple of different ways he can use his skills. But the main burst damage, because of the way they work, would be to use your Q followed by your W, by your E, by your Q. Okay, so that would be Overload, into a Rune Prison, into a Spell Flux, into an Overload. Now, remember that every time you cast a spell, you reduce the cooldown of your other spell. So Overload has 3 seconds, right? So you cast it first. Your Rune Prison, that takes 1 second off of it. Your Spell Flux, that takes another second off of it. At which point, it's pretty much going to be available to cast again. As it's your main sort of, it's your nuke, it's your main ability, it's pretty good. It works out really, really well. Ideally, you want to use your E before you W. So you would go like Q, E, W, Q. But people tend to run from Ryze. So just running your Spell Flux on them to try and get the magic reduction, the magic resistance reduction. They're not going to stick around for the rest of that combo to land, because it does lots of damage very quickly. It does tons of damage. So yeah, you're not always going to be in the position to do that. I always try to land a Q before I land my snare, because the Q has got ever so slightly more range. And if you do the cycle, if you go to Q, W, E, Q, it's guaranteed to have your Q back up for a finishing blow. The only time I would suggest leading with your Rune Prison is if you know that you're against a highly mobile champion, or they are going to flash, or dash, or teleport, or if it's LeBlanc, she's got escape skills. Any champion with escape skills, you want to use Rune Prison first, just to try and secure the damage against them. Your sustained damage, if you're against a one-on-one opponent, or if you're I don't know, if you're fighting Baron, or if you're fighting blue to try and get blue buff off a golem, you would go Q, E, Q, W, Q, R, Q, E, Q, W, Q. E, Q, W. Yeah, I think that's right. Basically, you want to try and land your Q in between every spell or every other spell. It's sustained damage, and it's the optimum, I would say, or the highest focused sustained damage for a single target that Ryze can dish out. Yeah, it's what I would use against Baron. It's what I would use against blue buff. It's what I would use if you're stuck in a dual one-on-one. If you can't burst down with your normal, if you're against a champion, for example, who is more tanky, as a champion you're not going to be able to burst down with your normal damage combination. And if they don't have a lot of lifesteal or spell vamp or whatever, normally this combo is the way to go. The one thing I would be sure to point out is, don't be afraid of using the skills with Ryze. Your cooldowns are ridiculously low. I'll cover off like skill order and stuff, and items. So I always start off with the mana gem and build it straight into a tier. This allows for 2 things. 1, it gives you mana regen. 2, it gives you more mana. 3, it allows you to increase your mana. Ryze's abilities have got next to no cooldown, so do not be afraid to use them. Use them on minions, just to clear the wave, and just spam the hell out of your skills. Use them against champions, use them against jungle creeps, buffs. Use them all the time, all day, every day. I see a lot of Ryze players who, I guess, stack AP rather than stacking mana, and they tend to do things in a more like you would play a normal mage. Like if you're playing, for example, Syndra mid, you're not going to spam all your skills, right? You kind of want to use that burst for focusing down the champion, so you don't want to have your skills on cooldown, you don't want to be in a low mana situation. With Ryze, this really isn't a problem. depending on your build. I guess if you don't have a metric fuck ton of mana like I have, then yeah, you're probably A, playing him wrong, and B, not gonna be as useful as you could be. So I always build Tear of the Goddess first, as soon as I possibly can. Spam the hell out of your skills, get the stacks up. I don't worry about building into an Archangel Staff until, you know, generally much later in the game. After this item, I will tend to build a Catalyst of the Protector. Catalyst of the Protector is such a good item. One, it gives you, when you level up, some sustain, because it will give you some health back and some mana back. Two, it gives you mana and health, which is brilliant, because Ryze will end up naturally quite tanky. Like, if you build him properly, he will end up quite tanky. And then what you want to do is you want to turn your Catalyst of Protector into a Rod of Ages. You want at least one before the 20-minute mark, because you want to try and get the passive stacks growing. So, for those that don't know how Rod of Ages works, it grants 20 health and 20 mana, and I think 2 AP per stack, up to a max of 10 stacks. So basically, it's going to increase your mana and your health and your AP. On Ryze, that's absolutely perfect, because your mana is your damage, your AP is your damage, and your health is your ability to sit in front of them and dish damage back out. So, yeah, it's a perfect time for Ryze. I always try to run 2 Rods of Ages on Ryze, at least 2 Rods of Ages. Sometimes you can get away with being cocky. I've done games where I've gone with like 5 Rods of Ages, well, 4 Rods of Ages and Archangels, and a pair of boots. Because I was just, you know, that fed in the game went on long enough to do so. Rods of Ages do stack. It's not a unique passive on the games, the stack games are stackable. So if you have more than 1 Rod of Ages, you can level them both up. That's going to happen. So if you have a really good start game and you could get away with buying 2 Rods of Ages early, well, that's just great, right? Rods of Ages naturally would give you 450 mana, plus 200, plus another 200 at maximum stacks. That's 650 mana. If you've got 2 of them, that's 1,300 extra mana. Now, remembering how his abilities work and the mana percentages, this all contributes quite substantially to your total damage output. Boots, always go for the magic penetration boots or the movement speed boots, the boots of swiftness. So sorcerer's boots or boots of swiftness, depending on your preference. Ryze does have some issues with speed. He has no real engage, other than Rune Prism, so or using your ulti to run in. But then you're wasting, because you can use your ulti to reset your other abilities if you cycle it into your spell combinations correctly. So yeah, Boots of Swiftness is a pretty solid idea. You get penetration through his E anyway. His spell flux, remember, reduces their magic resistance a little bit, but it's normally enough, as most people on public games don't tend to build a lot of magic resistance anyway. So yeah, 2 Rods of Ages, an Archangel Staff. I build a Death Cap because, like I said, while a lot of his damage does indeed come from mana, from having a lot of mana, it's also worth pointing out that, yes, he does have AP scaling. And yes, Death Cap will help with this because, of course, Death Cap gives you 120 AP and 30% bonus in total AP. The reason I don't tend to build it until later, like if we look in the current game, if we look at my items at the moment, I'm in the process, it looks like I'm in the process of building my Death Cap. Yeah, so I've got a tier, 2 Rods of Ages, boots, Agency Large Rod, and a, what's it called? I can't remember what that item's called. The yellow item staffy thing. So I would guess, by the looks of it, I'm building... Actually, no, I know exactly what I'll do next. I will build the yellow staff into an Archangel's. in my opinion, it's worth building Archangels before you build a Rabadon's Death Cap. The reason is simple. Archangels, at this point in the game, I'm like 25 minutes in, I should nearly be at 750 stacks on my Tier of the Goddess, which is the bonus mana, and when it's at 750 stacks, it will turn into a better item, an item which is going to be more useful for us as Ryze, and that's because it will then grant us ability to give ourselves a shield based on our magic resistance, our total mana, which on Ryze is like a lot. It's going to be a big shield. It will mean we will lose that mana, but it will give us the ability to tank stuff we normally wouldn't be able to tank. I think we're going to be ending this game fairly soon. Oh no, we're running back. It's okay. I can continue talking. So yeah, build Archangel Staff before you build the Rabadon's Death Cap. Now when I build the Archangel Staff, you will notice my AP will jump up. I'd imagine at least to 400, I'm going to say. We'll see in a second, because if I don't build, am I going to build Death Cap? I don't even remember. I did build a Death Cap. Wank. What did I do that for? What am I doing? I should have said my Blasting Wand. Blasting Wand! It's called a Blasting Wand. I remembered. I should have really got the Archangels first. That's my phone again, and it's the missus. I will call her back. I should probably mute this when I'm doing commentaries. Oops. She's going to kick my ass. Oh well. What was I saying? Yeah, Archangels. So, Archangel's passive ability is basically taking your total mana and giving you that as bonus AP. So the ability is called Insight. It's the unique passive of the Archangel Staff. Ability power. It grants you ability power equal to 3% of your maximum mana. On Ryze, that's substantial. The Archangel Staff gives you 250 mana anyway, right? You've got 1,300 extra mana from your Words of Ages. Your natural mana per level as well, and mana runes or whatever you're packing. That's 3% is quite a big deal. Plus the 5% bonus mana from the mastery. Yeah, that's substantial. So yeah, it looks like I'm about to back and go and buy this. Now I would normally, so it put me up at 606 total AP. And I've only really got one major AP item, and that is the Rabadon's Death Cap at this point. Of course, I've got 2 Words of Ages, which, yes, do grant some AP. It's like a total of 80 AP per Rod of Ages, right? So that's, yeah, it's not huge amounts. It's not like, well, I guess it is actually. Well, it's perspective. Put it into perspective. If you were building pure AP, you would probably have more AP at this point, but your damage wouldn't be quite as good because you wouldn't have the bonus damage coming in from mana. Anyways, looks like the game is over. I went 10-0 Ryze game, so I hope you enjoyed it. It's a champion you don't see very often. And yeah, if you liked it, subscribe, like, comment, do whatever. You know the drill. Catch you guys later.